A Maute group leaders demand for a prisoner swap, stressing that the government does not negotiate with terrorists. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana sees the end of the Marawi conflict within 2 weeks. The Department of Justice starts its reinvestigation into the multi-billion peso pork barrel fund scam. The Metro Manila Development Authority mulls a 2-day ban per week on vehicles under the number coding scheme to further ease the traffic problem in the metropolis.
This is PTV News. Good evening. I'm Richmond Cruz with Charms Espina.
News tonight, Malacanang says the government will not honor the demands allegedly made by Maute terrorists in their talks with religious leaders during an 8-hour truce in Marawi City over the weekend. Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella said the talks were not sanctioned by the government, adding that the policy not to negotiate with terrorists remains. The terrorist demands reportedly included swapping a hostage Catholic priest for the arrested parents and siblings of Abdullah Maute. More on this report from Rocky Ignacio.
The government is firm about the no-negotiation policy with the terrorist Maute ISIS group. Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella said this following reports of a proposed swap of civilian hostages in Father Chito Sogano for the captured Maute family members.
Government's policy not to negotiate with terrorists remains. Hence, the local religious leader-led talks with the terrorists last Sunday is one that was not sanctioned by government, the military, and our political leaders. Any demands made inside, therefore, hold no basis. Let us continue to remind the public that the gravity of terrorists and their supporters' offense is immense, and they must all be held accountable for all their actions.
Abella said, in spite non-public appearance, President Rodrigo Duterte is on top of the situation in Marawi City.
But the thing that is very important to note is that he is on top of every situation. He is aware of what's happening. He's updated regularly. He reads, he views, he listens to this. And he's quite aware. And again, this is just his, like we said, working style, and it was not meant to cast aspersions upon anybody, but this is the way he works.
In more than a month of martial rule in Mindanao, the palace official reported that enemy forces have started to disintegrate in Marawi City. Initial reports said that their leader Isnilon Hapilon had tried to escape the military cordon.
Granting that this is true, it would be a clear sign of his cowardice because he abandoned his companions and has run away from the battle.
The military operations continues to neutralize terrorists in the area to get innocent civilians out of harm's way. Abella said this amidst reports of soldiers being alleged threat against the women of Marawi.
Accusations of alleged threats purportedly encouraged by the president's remark are part of the propaganda used by the enemy to win sympathy among the people of Marawi and for the government to fail in its mission. It says, let us not be fooled by such dubious claims.
Meantime, the government is now preparing for the rehabilitation of Marawi. For the Nation, Rocky Ignacio.
Task Force Marawi spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Joar Herrera dismisses as misinformation allegations that soldiers are conducting illegal searches and seizing possessions of Marawi residents. Herrera stressed that the soldiers are in the front lines 24/7 just to liberate Marawi City from the Maute terrorists. He appealed for a stop to such misinformation. Meanwhile, for the latest on the Marawi situation, here's Julius de Samburu.
We are winning. This was the statement issued during the press briefing of the Joint Task Force Marawi and Crisis Management Committee. Along with this, the Philippine National Police refute allegations that the AFP and PNP are involved in any forms of violence and threat towards children and women affected by siege of Marawi City. Authorities denied receiving any reports of this nature.
Per inquiry from the Women and Children Protection Desk officer who are manning the evacuation center, there was no reported rape cases, and yet we are still verifying the veracity of the complaint. And on the other side, we are welcoming any complaint if ever, but per reports from the field officer from the ground, there was no, definitely, I repeat, definitely there was no rape cases, and we already had a inquiry with the traditional leaders if there is any.
The crisis committee appealed to organizations outside Marawi City to coordinate with its operations center, human rights and legal assistance desk to report any information regarding violence so that it will be given immediate action.
Just to give you an idea, every time that our military and our police rescue civilians, especially from the trapped areas, well, as soon as they endorse them to us here in the provincial capital, immediately upon giving out the immediate concern like health or medical assistance, we transport them immediately to evacuation centers.
JTF Marawi reminded the public to stop spreading false data which can affect the government's operations against terrorism. People were also urged to support our troops against terrorism and extremism instead of releasing misinformed assumptions and speculations. Meanwhile, at the war, the armed forces are still fulfilling its mission to liberate Marawi from the hands of the Maute bandits. Earlier today, bombs and exchange of firefights continued in the ground zero, but all actions of the government troops were carried out based on the rule of law. Tightened defense has also been positioned by the military at the Lake Lanao, where an individual was barred from allegedly bringing in ammunition, and the exit of wounded individuals from the main battlefield were monitored. JTF Marawi pointed out that only a few portions of the 4 barangays are still occupied by more or less 100 Maute fighters.
Ang ginagawa po ng Armed Forces of the Philippines ngayon ay ini-strengthen yung adjacent municipalities to provide security measures, especially on the exit and entry. Ang ginagawa po natin ngayon dyan ay nag-increase tayo ng patrols. Okay. Ang tawag dito yung parang sea patrols. Nag-increase tayo dito ng capabilities.
All given data to the military are subject for verification. Based on the statements of the 7 civilians rescued at the front line, they were forced by the Maute to bring firearms and loot abandoned establishments. Women hostages were forced to marry members of the Maute and Abu Sayyaf groups.
Pinipilit din nila that the hostages were forced to balik Islam or reverted to Islam. Okay? And also tasked to bring wounded terrorists to mosques.
The crisis committee reiterated that the government remains focused on the welfare of the evacuees. The government is firm on its stand that no negotiations will be made with terrorists, as our Muslim brothers and sisters pray for Allah for the city's early recovery and for the siege to end. For the nation, Julius de Samburon, Islamic City of Marawi, Lanao del Sur.
Beware of peeps sending aid and relief. Not all items of assistance sent to Marawi City under donations contain purely relief goods and materials. This is what cops from Mandaluyong City found out, much to their astonishment, in one of the boxes bound for the besieged city when it yielded firearms amongst the food and other relief accoutrements. Exactly what and how much was found, PTV's Eunice Monte reveals in this report she filed.
The Philippine National Police is now investigating a gun store in Marawi City, probably owned by one of the Abu Sayyaf leader Istilon Hapilon's close allies. According to the Chief of PNP Firearms and Explosives Office Police Senior Superintendent Valeriano de Leon, they are still verifying information regarding this report of a barangay captain connected to Hapilon.
We have been close in contact with law enforcers in Marawi, particularly in Lanao. No? Binigyan ko na rin sila ng mga listahan doon ng mga may baril para sa ganun ay mabigyan sila ng caution at the same time deposit to us. Bear in mind that Mindanao is under martial law.
He further added that they are not removing the possibility that the gun store in Mindanao could possibly be named after one of Hapilon's close ties. But as the investigation is still ongoing, the PNP cannot confirm or deny these reports. On the other hand, the PNP is also now investigating a man with the alias of AJ who allegedly gave donations with bullets and gun accessories concealed in relief goods. According to the reports received by the Mandaluyong PNP, the relief drive organizer Muhammad Mutalib reported more than 100 of reloaded gun ammos of 9mm and some gun accessories found inside a plastic relief goods bag left by a certain AJ. According to Police Senior Superintendent De Leon, they are also looking at the possibility that this could have just been an item overlooked by the donors, as these reloads are for practical shooting and not for war.
Minsan binabalistics natin, ino-autopsy natin, if these firearms were used during the encounter, no? If it was given or provided to the threat groups. But if it is legally owned by someone...
Amidst the speculations, the PNP is now investigating the incident and the real motives of the donors. For the Nation, Eunice Maute.
Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana sees an end to the Marawi City conflict within the next 2 weeks. Lorenzana also assures all affected Marawi City residents that the government will do everything in its authority to help them get back on their feet, including the repair of their homes. Likewise, he admitted that there is a bit of added pressure among troops as President Rodrigo Duterte is scheduled to deliver his second State of the Nation address on July 24. He said it will not look good if there are still fighting and killings at such time. With martial law in effect in Mindanao, particularly in war-torn Marawi City, a price freeze on basic goods is also being enforced. But the Department of Trade and Industry said some unscrupulous traders are taking advantage of the current situation. Dan Quere reports.
The Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, continuously conducts its close monitoring of the prices of primary goods in Mindanao. This is in connection to the price freeze advisory of the agency after the President's declaration of martial law. According to DTI, there were establishments that violated the price freeze.
We found 2 business establishments, particularly in Ligan City, that are selling above the price freeze. Also in Lanao del Norte and Surigao, we found 7 major establishments who are reported to have increased prices of basic necessities on a range of about 10 centavos to 2 pesos.
The agency explained that most of these establishments had higher prices on canned goods. Meanwhile, DTI has observed that prices of some products in the region have started to decline.
In Lanao del Norte, there have been observed downward trend, particularly on agricultural and marine products.
DTI reminds establishments on the possible penalties in case they violate the price freeze advisory.
Penalties and violations against price freeze include at least an imposition of 5,000 to 1 million or imprisonment up to 1 year, 1 to 10 years.
The agency meanwhile reiterates that supply of primary goods in the region are sufficient and prices have stabilized. For the Nation, Diane Quere.
Let's face it, the country's state of war weaponry and defense or security systems leaves much to be desired. Hence, to completely neutralize the Islamic extremist foes and bring the siege in Marawi to a quick and decisive end, the need to surveil enemy positions from above is imperative. Lucky for us, the nation's friends from down under, on account of a defense cooperation agreement, is more than glad to provide for needed instruments and equipment to perform such a task. PTV's Eunice Maute has the details.
To finally free the city of Marawi, the Armed Forces of the Philippines is open to the military assistance given by the Australian government. Though no exact date was mentioned by the AFP, 2 aircrafts will be given as assistance to our troops still fighting in Marawi for over a month now.
Though that offer has been accepted by our Armed Forces of the Philippines, and we are very thankful with our Australian counterparts for that offer, but to my knowledge, up to now, hindi pa po natin ito nai-employ.
From the email sent by the Australian Defence Minister, the Honourable Mary Spain, the Philippines is set to receive 2 AP-3C Orion aircrafts to help our country's fight against the extremists in Mindanao. Even before, Australia and Philippines have a good history of defense cooperation program, which includes counter-terrorism cooperation. As for AFP Public Affairs Office Chief Colonel Edgar Arevalo, now it's up to the commanders on the ground where, when, and how they're going to use these modern warfare aircrafts from Australia.
Our commanders on the ground know that we have accepted this particular generous gesture of our Australian counterparts, and we're leaving it up to them to determine what exactly these are and how exactly this help or assistance from the Australian Defence Force can be employed vis-a-vis the situation obtaining on the ground.
It can be recalled that before this assistance, the AFP confirmed receiving technical support from the United States. On the other hand, while Isnilon Hapilon may have fled Marawi, the AFP is confident that they are on track with the moves of the two remaining leaders, Abdullah and Madi Maute, who were personally seen during the humanitarian pause. The military also explained that the government will never negotiate with a terrorist, as they should be held liable for the gravity of their immense offense to the people of Marawi and the Philippines. For the nation, Eunice Maute.
President Rodrigo Duterte tonight led the Eid al-Fitr celebration at the Rizal Hall in Malacanang. Muslim leaders, including MILF Chief Peace Negotiator Mohager Iqbal, were present during the celebration. In his remarks, the president reiterated his government's commitment to secure a just and lasting peace in Mindanao. He also assured that government forces will end the crisis in Marawi City. He said there is a concrete plan for the rehabilitation and reconstruction of the war-torn city, with an initial 20 billion pesos allocated for this purpose. The president vowed to rebuild Marawi City from the ruins of the Maute terrorist siege.
I will see to it that Marawi will rise as a prosperous city again. Maghanap ako ng pera. Yung mga nakita ko sa may mga priority sana ako kasi gusto ko rin ang mga sundalo, but I will set aside. Sunny is siya yung taxman natin. Sabi ko, I need a big amount because I will rebuild Marawi. Kailangan ko talaga itayo ko uli ang Marawi kasi